Development of the formal business sector, creating opportunities for small and budding entrepreneurs, and creating a level playing field for small and micro enterprises development were some of the ideas behind the establishment of the Ministry of Business under the APNU+AFC coalition government 1 year ago. Today, in this edition of our program, we are examining some of the achievements, some of the challenges, and the way forward for the ministry in this new year. With me is the Honorable Dominic Gaskin, Minister of Business. Minister, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to sit with you and have a conversation.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you. First of all, if we can go back a little bit, what were some of the immediate plans you had for the business sector, being appointed Minister of Business and also somebody who's been in the sector for quite some time?
Well, of course, having been appointed rather suddenly to the position of Minister of Business, I did have, on the first night when I went to bed, a lot of immediate plans, fix this, fix that. But the reality set in, I guess, the first day that I came into office, and I realized that it's not going to be about immediate plans. It's going to be about proper planning or immediate planning. And what I think I said very early was that I saw this as a 5-year job, and I wanted to have the 5 years in which I could sort of achieve some major goals and objectives. And so we sort of took our time and developed a set of goals that would cover the areas of my responsibility. And those major goals had to do with, well, there were 5 major goals. The key goal, the most important one in my estimation, was improving the business environment. And following that were increased investments in our economy, increase our exports, value-added exports, and creating better opportunities for the economic opportunities for the most vulnerable communities as well as individuals. And lastly, to actually make the ministry itself more relevant to Guyana's national economic development. So those, I would say, they weren't that immediate, but those were the major objectives which have guided us up to this point.
Well, with the formation of the Ministry of Business, fairly new, no previous framework to facilitate immediate intervention of plans and programs, how difficult has this been for you, or is this for you?
Well, the immediate challenge was a capacity issue of capacity, within the ministry itself. When we started out, there was not a single person with any legal expertise or qualifications, not a single, and I'm talking about staff members now, member of staff with any ICT expertise or qualifications. I think there was one person with an MBA, and this is the Ministry of Business. So I think the challenge was really not having inherited a ministry that was dedicated to the well-being of businesses, or that even understood the importance of businesses to the overall well-being of our economy and our country. Because my position has always been that it is the private sector that generates the wealth, that actually generates the tax revenues that governments need to do all the good things that governments are supposed to do. So with that in mind, we have to make sure that we have a private sector that can generate wealth and pay taxes. And that involves, of course, having an environment that is conducive to doing good business. And I think that was one of the challenges, is that we did not have that environment, because I don't think it was clear to the previous government that this was important, that businesses are important, and that we need to make sure that we provide them with a level playing field, where they can compete on the basis of things like quality and reliability, and rather than on connections and who knows who and who is related to who and that sort of thing. So those were some of the challenges. Also, we inherited an economy that was slowing down, and that's never a good thing in business. So that was also a challenge. There were many other challenges, but I don't want to dwell on challenges. We have an economy to fix, and we have a lot of work to do. So let's leave those challenges behind and move forward.
So with that said, how would you rate the current business climate in Guyana after 1 year?
Well, I'd like to think that it's improving. I think, to be very honest with you, that you don't change a whole lot in 1 year. But what we certainly have done as a Ministry of Business is send the right signals to the private sector. And that is that our government understands the importance of businesses to a growing economy. And I think that is the key. And we have been doing that within this ministry. Go Invest, for instance, has been, it's still undergoing reform, but certainly at the leadership level, there is a new board, a board that has my confidence, and there is a new CEO who also has my confidence. And I've been getting a lot of reports from businesses that have interacted with Go Invest over the last few months, that they are very satisfied with the experience, the responsiveness of Go Invest to their particular situation. And so the reports have been good, and that to me tells me that we are on the right track.
From your engagements with members of the business community, how do they view the current business climate and the environment? Do they think that it's a facilitating environment?
Not as yet. Not as yet. I think there is an understanding that it's an improving environment, and that we are going to get there, and that they are not disadvantaged in any way, and that fair competition is something that will prevail from now on, and that there is greater transparency in how businesses are regulated, and in how government in how the government is doing its work. So I think that alone, there's a greater confidence among the private sector that there is that level playing field, and that they have an equal chance of success, and that even though our economy has not been performing as well as a few years ago, and it's largely due to commodity prices on the international markets, and nothing that's actually happening here. I think there's a sense that this is a strong economy. Guyana is a wealthy country when it comes to natural resources. We have a small economy, small population. That is a limiting factor. But there's a lot of on the horizon. There's the oil discovery, and that certainly has created a lot of optimism within the business community, and so I have found that there is optimism, there is some caution. Some are still not sure whether the change in government, how that will impact on their businesses. And if there is also the factor of the large informal economy. We have said that, we are a nation of laws, and, we want business to be conducted according to the laws and the rules of this country. And that is causing some consternation among businesses that were prior to now operating outside of the legal and regulatory guidelines or framework. And we don't want to tolerate that anymore. As a government, we have to put our foot down and say, look, you're running a business, there are certain obligations that you have as a business person. You're benefiting from operating in this economy, and that comes with certain responsibilities, and we'd like to see you fulfill those responsibilities. And so we're looking for greater compliance. We're not looking to shut anyone down, but we are looking to bring the informal sector into greater compliance or total compliance. And that, of course, is another challenge. But we feel that the message is getting out. But the effect of that, of course, is that there has been a slowdown in certain sectors of the economy, and we believe that it is largely the informal sector that is being affected because they are unsure now where they stand.
Would the Ministry of Business be collaborating directly with law enforcement agencies to ensure that this is done, that these businesses are in conformity with the laws?
No, well, not quite. We're not a regulatory agency or anything like that. I think law enforcement has its own mandate, and they should do their job according to their own regulations and guidelines and mandate. But our approach is a little different because we want to show the benefits also of compliance. And we have incorporated into some of our programs certain requirements for information that would give us an indication of whether we're dealing with a company that is compliant or whether we're dealing with a company that does not file taxes or remit NIS and PAYE payments for their employees and that sort of thing. So we have a slightly different approach, but aimed at the same objective, that is, encouraging greater compliance.
Minister, you mentioned Go Invest. The last time I had a conversation with the CEO, he explained that Go Invest in the whole reform process is also now looking at applications for potential investors in Guyana. Do you think that the new dispensation and the new climate and everything is encouraging outsiders to come and invest in Guyana based on what is put on the table by the government?
Yes, certainly. I think I can see it. There is a lot of interest in investing in Guyana. I think outsiders or people who are not on the ground here generally have a greater appreciation for the potential of our economy, especially compared to other economies around the world that are, experiencing slowdowns and declines. We are projecting this year 4.4% growth. Last year, it was 3. You know, those are decent figures in, you know, compared to many countries. Of course, you know, we are, as I said, a small economy, so 3% growth or 4% growth in a small economy may not be as significant as similar growth in a large economy, but nevertheless, I think also given our natural resources and given the recent oil discovery, I think there is a sense that things are going to happen in Guyana, and as I said, a lot of people outside of Guyana are recognizing this and are showing an interest.
With regard the collaboration, or rather this is with World Bank and doing the ease of doing business in Guyana, how were your efforts in terms of changing this?
Well, we are very optimistic about this initiative because it came about after last year's report, and we decided to take a look at some of the areas of the survey where we had scored badly to see how we could perhaps improve our ranking in those areas. And one thing led to another, and eventually I think we ended up communicating directly with the World Bank team, and they were you know, very excited actually about, you know, collaborating with us to actually bring about some improvements, that could lead to tangible results on the index. So they actually, a team came down here and they did some consultations with our ministry and a number of other agencies as well as the private sector, and out of that came a decision that they would provide technical assistance for us to address certain areas of deficiency, and currently we are at a stage now where we have terms of reference have been prepared for some consultants, 2 consultants, one in the area of ICT and another in the area of legislative drafting, to look at the various bits of legislation that affect business that need to be improved, and also to deal with the issue of the ICT, use of ICT, you know, within the government. So that's very positive, and we have also had some other offers of technical assistance for areas that are not likely to be covered by this first initiative. So I think that as long as we stick with this program, we are on a good path, and I would say certainly within 2 to 3 years we will see a significant improvement of Guyana's ranking on the Global Ease of Doing Business Index.
How supportive is the private sector?
Generally, the private sector is supportive of anything that will improve the ease of doing business in Guyana. But we have not engaged the private sector in a very direct or very structured way on this initiative, because it came about very suddenly, simply because we looked at the last publication and decided, let's have a closer look at it, let's examine it, see where the greatest deficiencies lie, and see if they, you know, we can maybe address them you know, individually. And that one thing led to another, like I said, and this was not something that we had sat down earlier on and planned. So this, like I said, came about a bit suddenly. So it wasn't something that we had any great consultation over.
Minister, for the past year, what would you say are the major achievements, if any, you want to put on the record so far?
I don't like to use the word achievements. I would prefer to say highlights, and or even areas of excitement, because I know I am excited by certain initiatives. One is the single windows automated processing system, SWAPS as it's known for short. I think that it's a trade facilitation initiative that has tremendous potential for improving the way business is conducted in Guyana. Basically, it has to do with computerized processing of trade transactions, from licensing to registering a business to paying taxes. You can take it as far as you want. It's expandable in many areas. And it exists in many countries. You can ask a lot of business people in countries that are more progressive, and they will tell you they've never seen a tax office in their life. Because doing business with government in other countries, in many other countries, does not involve physically going to an office, and standing in a line or anything like that. You go on your computer and you get things done. And that is what we'd like to have in place here. We've done some examining of previous work that was done, and we are currently at the stage where we have to, I guess, put together a final terms of reference for a consultancy to take this forward. But it's something that excites me because it also has an impact on corruption. And once you're processing electronically, you're removing the opportunities for intervention, human intervention. And so not only are we looking at a more efficient system in which a number of processes can happen simultaneously, and therefore produce the results faster, but we're also looking at a safer system also that reduces significantly the opportunities for irregularities or anything like that. So that I think will really give Guyanese businesses, or any businesses operating in Guyana, a lot more confidence in the system.
Minister, if I may ask you, what are some of the other stuff you're working on currently that we can see coming out of the Ministry of Business in maybe another year or so?
Yeah, the Trusted Trader program is one that we are currently developing, and that should be effective, I would say, sometime within the next year. We're shooting for 2017, the beginning of 2017, but again, a lot of things sound simple and unfortunately involve sometimes legislative amendments and other more complex procedures before we can actually implement them. We've also inherited a number of projects too that we are trying to complete. One is the Lethem industrial site, which we are hoping to have completed by the end of next year or shortly thereafter. That has enormous potential. Again, it is up to the private sector to buy into the opportunities, but it's another project, as you said, that is being implemented and is going to be completed by the end of next year. The whole national quality infrastructure is going to be improved through an export promotion project, which has to do with the upgrading of the national laboratory network. It really is improving our various testing facilities nationwide. While that may sound boring, it's actually a very useful tool for certification of products. Currently a lot of, if you're a manufacturer and you want to export, you have to meet certain requirements, and it requires testing and certification, and a lot of the testing that is required to meet the standards for exporting for export markets, that testing is not being done here. Some people have to send their samples abroad for testing, either because the actual test can't be done here or because the laboratory or facility is not accredited. So we are looking at a project to, first of all, upgrade the laboratory of the Bureau of Standards and involve them in the training of laboratory professionals throughout Guyana. So that's a project that has enormous potential also. There are more. I can't rattle them offhand, but we are constantly working, and there's always some initiative or another in the pipeline.
Before I move to my final question, Minister, is the Belvedere industrial site along the same lines with Lethem?
It is being, yes. That industrial site, it started, I don't know, 10 years ago or more, and we have decided that we are going to complete it. So there is in this year's budget an allocation for some work to be done on it, not necessarily completion. We look at it at completion perhaps next year, but yes, it's something that we want to conclude.
Minister, you mentioned that upon being appointed, you were looking at this as a 5-year job. What is your vision at the end of this 5-year? What should we expect the business sector to be like? What is it that you're working on to?
Well, certainly a more attractive business environment, a more diversified economy, greater employment opportunities, a broadening of the revenue base. I think those are the key areas of improvement that we're looking at. And I should also mention the sustainable development goals that we are a signatory to the sustainable development goals, and they I don't know how familiar you are with it's a set of 17 broad goals that almost the entire world has adopted, and they provide a fairly thorough framework for human development and in an environmentally responsible way, a sustainable way, by the year 2030. And so Guyana, being a signatory, is required to achieve those goals. So that, as I said, provides a framework for how we operate over the next 15 years. And among those goals, almost every ministry can find goals that apply to their particular mandate. And the goals themselves are broken down into very specific targets that have to be achieved and the time frames for achievement. So while that may not come to fruition over the next 5 years, it certainly provides some targets for us to achieve over the next 15 years. And they're very carefully defined, and we can't just, do as was previously done, sign international conventions, international agreements, and then put them on the shelf and ignore them. It does give us an obligation to, to achieve these goals. And this is something that I know the president himself has signed on, it has put his signature to that document, and I know His Excellency takes it very seriously. So again, if we can achieve the targets, achieve those goals, it certainly, by 2030, it would certainly mean that Guyana would be a very different country in 15 years' time.
And finally, Minister, what would you say to the stakeholders in the business sector as the government steps into its second year in office?
I would say invest, continue to invest, continue to grow. There are no impediments to growth in Guyana. I would like to see a lot more investments in value-added exporting businesses, and I would like to engage the private sector in a more structured way to see how we can work together to actually achieve a more diversified economy and and diversification into value-added exports is my preference, because we need employment, and so we want to increase our increase productivity, and also increase opportunities for employment, and the value-added sectors do provide those sorts of opportunities, especially given the variety of raw materials that we have right here in Guyana.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.